Yeah, so the reality of the war is won by manpower. It's won by sheer number of artillery shells that you can produce, the sheer amount of, tanks you can make. And as of today, March 12th, we're seeing that the Russians have regained the initiative
Yeah.
because they have shifted their economy, their society, and everything over to a war footing.
With this war, we can see the ever-present reality of the fact that more stuff is better,
Mhm,
and Russia's producing more drones,
mhm,
more tanks,
mhm,
more everything essentially than Ukraine is. And we're also seeing right after that, second rule of logistics is important.
mhm,
Ukraine can't really produce anything of its own at the moment. All their industries and blown to smithereens with
mhm,
been captured out east, and they're reliant on Western support, which is lacking right now. European artillery shipments not meeting our rates.
mhm,
We had, was it 6 months of the U.S. aids being installed in the Congress and
mhm,
such, and the initiative is firmly in Russian hands, as we're seeing now with a new offensive in the north.
mhm,
We'll see what scale it goes on and
mhm,
how far it goes. And also, we're seeing action in the Avdiivka region,
mhm.
and we'll see what comes up out of it. How do you think these offensives are going to go? And what do you think Ukraine's response will be?
I I think the war is still very much open. It can go either way.
Yeah.
I think we're seeing Russia take advantage of its manpower, its industrial capacity to absolutely outproduce the Ukrainians. We're seeing a demographic collapse in Ukraine with a lot of young men fleeing the country. The Ukrainian government has started to increase the scope of its mobilization campaign to
Yeah.
account for manpower shortages.
Yeah. They signed
Yep.
the mobilization bill not too long ago.
Yep. I think last time you said that this is Ukraine's war, or this is Russia's war to
Or to
lose.
lose. Yes.
And I think it really just depends at this point on who has more will to win. Ukrainians obviously have the will because this is their sovereignty that they're defending, but Ukrainians cannot do it alone and they need support from outside parties. Russia, on the other hand, despite their recent gains, they are bleeding. Like war costs a lot in blood and money, and they cannot keep it up forever. However, we're seeing now that the Russians are very, like, we've seen it in the last couple of years, but it's evident now they're all in. They're still not in control of Kiev, and they're not in control of, uh
Okay.
mm,
That's
how I see
no.
it going is really who's gonna commit? Because if Russia, a population of approximately 150 million people commit, then it's very difficult to see a Ukrainian victory, even if we do give them all the financial support we need, because at the end of the day, right, it's bodies that win wars.
Yeah.
I don't currently see Western governments sending in troops. The Ukrainians on their side, right? They're dealing with manpower shortages. They're dealing with morale issues just because this war is now turning into a long term affair. What's really important is them not just relying on Western support. They need to build their own industrial capacity. They need to start looking at, what I see as the Afghan defense. Like I don't know if I can find the interview now, but I remember seeing one a very long time ago of, an Afghan warlord saying, like, being absolutely assured that he was going to prevail. And roughly the message he was saying is just like, how long are, foreign forces going to be here? 6 months, a year, 5 years, maybe 10, maybe 20. He said, we will be here for the next 1,000 years. We will never leave. And the Ukrainians need that. They need to send a message that no matter how long it takes, we will never surrender. This is our home. This is our stand. And for every meter of land, you will bleed, and their resolve needs to last longer than the resolve of the Russians.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
But unfortunately, like you said, Ukraine can't fight this alone.
Mhm,
And we've entered a period already, it seems like, where everyone's starting to feel the pain.
mhm,
European reserves
mhm,
are dried up of military equipment. America is dealing with its own issues.
mhm,
It took 6 months for the aid package to get passed, even including Taiwan and Israel. And we've seen this talk. from Europeans of sending troops in. Germany recently made a statement about uh, potentiality of NATO countries and our armies shooting down drones
Mhm,
over Ukraine. France has discussed sending troops into Ukraine, but for the time being, that's all talk, and we'll see if they actually decide to go in. We know volunteers have gone in, a lot of Polish volunteers, French Foreign Legion,
mhm.
Americans, British, all over the country, have gone, all over the world have entered Ukraine to fight as volunteers, but nothing official yet. So we'll see. But, you know, Ukraine supporters are trying to hurt monetarily. You know, a lot of money has been poured into Ukraine as combined with equipment.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I'm not seeing the commitment or resolve. Like, for instance, I forget who did it, but there have been easing on oil sanctions for
Mhm.
Russia by some, I think, European country.
Okay.
I forget. I saw in passing. And, again, for like the past 2 years, we know the Russians been bypassing oil sanctions through India,
Mhm.
and no care has been taken to prevent that. And I'm not seeing the motive, the actual actions being taken by Europe or America to actually support Ukrainian commitment to fight. And even with the Ukrainians, there's still issues because, as you said, there's people fleeing the country and not staying and fighting for it. You have millions of people over outside of Ukraine who are at this point, after the mobilization bill passed, cut off from services.
Mhm.
I mean, it's going to be a rough year for Ukraine, I feel.
Yep. Yep, I agree. We shall see. I
Yeah.
think that's a good stopping point. In the next final chapter, we'll talk about the future of the war and what it means for the world, especially when it comes to Ukraine.
I guess to close out, what do you want to kind of, as of this point, what do you see as lessons from taken from this war that you feel what needs to be kind of taken by people around the world?
The more things change, the more they stay the same. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And, a third platitude, right? Like war never changes except when it does.
Yeah.
I think this war is just a recurring theme of several lessons that we've already learned from history. In that the side that has more will always win over the side that has less. And that takes into account the realities of war. Like if your opponent is just as strongly willed as you have to defeat your opponent and destroy them completely. That is the only way to counter such will. You have to either make him give up, or if they don't give up, then you have to destroy them. We're seeing now that wars are won when soldiers hold ground and deny it to the enemy until their will is crushed completely.
Yeah.
I don't see any room for negotiations in the future anytime soon. Neither the Ukrainian government or the Russian government want to negotiate
Yeah.
because they both see it as their war to win.
They have nothing to gain from negotiations at this
Right.
point.
So I think the lesson is right now, I think we're entering the stage where it is realpolitik, or it goes beyond realpolitik. I think it is a battle. The battlefield is going to determine what will happen to the future of Ukraine. Not, not
Platitudes.
not platitudes, not really, the economy, not really propaganda, not really, technology. It will be which side has more will.
Yeah.
That would be like the main lesson. How about yourself? What lesson would you say is
Uh,
a takeaway?
I'll say in the same vein, nothing really has changed. I mean, for the past 10 years, I remember people saying, like, oh, the war has changed. What wars are a thing of the past? And no, they haven't been. They haven't been, and this proves that it isn't.
Yeah.
And I feel the lesson to be gained is, essentially, war is back on the table.
War's back on the menu,
Yeah,
boys.
I mean, it's pretty much. I mean, you know, especially Europe. I mean, and even America. It's been the goal of security rather than defense.
Mhm,
And I feel is the best to learn now is war's back.
mhm.
Um, who knows what the next one will be? Who knows how big it'll be? Who's gonna be involved? But it's gonna come somewhere, at some point, again and again. I don't think it's ever gonna go away,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
Yep.
At least for the foreseeable future.
Yep.
War's back
There
and it's staying.
there's an old curse, and
Yeah,
I think now it's true more than ever. It was especially true during the pandemic,
yeah.
but it was, "May you live
Live
to
with
see interesting times,"
yeah,
and the times are an interesting.
interesting, and they look to be interesting.